he was a very intense guy, as you can see. He was that way as a player. He never let up. He wasn't the fastest guy in the world, and he used to tease me all the time, how come you're throwing me the ball? Nobody's ever thrown me the ball before. So, but he was, whatever you had, you got all of it all the time. That was for sure.
Mike, we had you on not too long ago, and Brock Purdy was damn near perfect, and he got the win Saturday night, but we haven't spoken since the Christmas game against the Ravens, arguably his worst game. And then what you thought, because there's nobody like you to break down quarterback play Saturday night. And I told my partner before you answer here, Brock's on record as saying he likes to throw to a spot. And I'm just wondering, do you think defenses have kind of figured something out? And that's why we saw maybe not his best game at home in the playoff game last Saturday night.
No, I think that we did that for decades, and a lot of teams do that. And I think for the most part, everybody does that. You have to anticipate your throws, but it looked to me like he was trying to do too much. Just watching his helmet, it looked like he was trying to look off a lot of stuff and just let it go. And sometimes you try to do so much as a player, and you have to be careful with it. But the final analysis, when it came down to it, he settled down, and he went down in the last drive and did just a terrific job. And I think that's really the only thing that really matters. I do know that watching him in the second half, he looked like he was a lot more comfortable in the shotgun.
Mike Martz joining us here on the Boxer and Gerson guest line on 95.7 The Game. As a former head coach, but also specifically as a play caller, I want to ask you about Kyle Shanahan, because one of the big storylines from that game was the management of the end of that first half and kind of trying to thread the needle of scoring but not leaving time. And this is something that we've seen from Shanahan before in big games and in the postseason. As someone that's been in that position before, number one, how difficult is that? And do you think that Shanahan overthinks it at times, or do you think that he's trying to do the right thing?
I don't know. I'm not sure when I know what the right thing is. I know this. I've never had the confidence to feel like I knew when I could score. I listen to announcers on TV and say, well, he's going to gobble up some time and then he's going to score. Yeah, if it was that easy, you could do that all game, right? It just doesn't work like that. You're trying to score. If you leave time on the clock, well, that's why you play defense. But you can't control when you're going to score. And I think anybody who does look at it that way, you're going to end up failing. We had good players, and we did everything we could to score, and then whatever was left on the clock, so be it. But you can't choreograph that, in my opinion. You're doing everything you can to get the ball in the end zone.
Mike, you were right. The Niners, the bottom line is they won. Their defense was bend but don't break. They didn't record a sack. So all week we've taken calls like, where's the Niners D-line? How would you describe this Lion offense, and what's your gut tell you on what Jared Goff and his weapons can do come Sunday at 3:30 here in San Francisco?
Well, the thing that'll be hard first of all, I think the defensive line in the second half of that game really, really amped it up and played very well. They struggled the first half, but when you look at Love in the second half, he was running for his life on every pass play. They didn't get him, and that's a credit to Love more than anything else. But I do think that Detroit, the inside zone runs, the double teams and all that sort of thing, they'll bring that again. And they're the best in the league at doing it. So the secondary force is going to have to be vital. Those safeties are going to have to come down, fit the run. They're going to have to get him into either a quarters defense or a middle close defense where you can get safety support, because, the front 6 or 7 guys are not going to be able to handle the Detroit running game. You're just going to have to get safety help down there early.
Mike Martz, former OC of the greatest show on turf, longtime head coach in the NFL, joining us here on 95.7 The Game on the Boxer and Gerson guest line. Coach, if you had to kind of compare and contrast the two quarterbacks, Purdy and Goff, is there an advantage in this game, or is it one side or the other, or is it kind of even? How do you sort of slice the two signal callers?
Well, I think when you get in a game like this, experience doesn't have anything to do with it. You have to be careful with that. We've been through that 2 years ago, but you just can't you have to be careful about what you're asking your guys to do. You're not asking them to do more than they can do, obviously. And I think, the old adage about being real simple, in big games. There's a little bit of truth for that. You have to be crazy. You can't be going crazy on a lot of new things, but you still have to continue to try to manipulate the defense offensively, get him into things that you want him to be in. And he does a fantastic job of that with the motioning and the shifting. By doing that, you can choreograph the location of some of those defensive players to get the matchups in the running game that you want. And it's one of the reasons why they've been so successful.
Mike, Deebo Samuel is, he's 50-50, and we're hoping he goes. But how vital is he to the Niner offense and Brock Purdy pre-snap?
He's a bonus. There's too many other good players. If it was he and Brock Purdy and CMC, then that's one thing. But there's Ayuk and these other guys. There's too many good players there. He's a wonderful bonus, but he's not going to be why you win or lose in this game. You'd love to have him. If you can have him for 15 plays, that'd be fantastic. But you need to go into this game. If he's 50-50 thinking that you're not going to have him, then if you have him, well, that's good news.
Mike Martz joining us here on 95.7 The Game. And, looking at Detroit and defensively, they're very good up front, perhaps a little bit weaker on the backside than up front at the defensive line spots. As a play caller, if it does appear that what you like to do is run the ball, and that is where the defense is strongest, I mean, do you still try to establish the run, or is this a game where you expect Brock Purdy to sling it in a much more efficient manner than you did against Green Bay?
Oh, you don't concede anything with the bank that the 49ers have got. You concede nothing. I used to talk to Dallas Cowboys when Emmett was first there, and they used to run a lead all the time with Moose as the fullback there, and the defenses always bring down safety to help stop it, and there's nobody to block him. And I was talking to their line coach. I went down there to visit him, and I said, "Well, who blocks this guy?" He said, "What do you mean, who blocks him?" He said, "He got an extra guy down there." He said, "Well, he belongs to Emmett." And that's what happens. When you have a great player like that, sometimes it's making so many guys to get down in there. You can't leave it. He's too good a player. You still need to get the ball into his hands and let him create.
Mike, talk to us about the thought process and the psyche when it comes to pressure in these type of games, because we always just relate it to the players. But how does this affect coaches? Did you watch the game at all and think Kyle was tight? And I'm kind of just going to right before the half. A lot of fans were kind of like, "What's going on? Be aggressive." How much of that pressure is real for these coaches in regard to situations and play calling?
Once the ball's kicked off, none of that is apparent, when you're on the sideline calling plays. The thing that was frustrating, I don't think people realize how good the Packers were. And I think he was frustrated more than feeling the pressure because things, they just weren't playing very well. And it's a little bit of the 49ers, but there's a lot of Green Bay. Green Bay is really good.
Well, look, before we get you out of here, Coach, I know we appreciate your insight, fantastic analysis. Are you leaning one way or the other in this game? If you had to predict who comes out on top and heads to the Super Bowl from the NFC, who do you think does?
This is going to be a very, very hard game for the 49ers. It's not a good matchup for them because they are patient. I'm talking about Detroit's patient enough to hand it with those two backs and grind it out and keep them off the field, and they're explosive enough to get that play action pass down the field, and those great linebackers that the Niners have, and they're great. That tandem is terrific. Get them caught up in the line of scrimmage and get it behind. That could be a tough recipe for the 49ers. I think the 49ers, Kyle's always been very deliberate, methodical, going down the field and creating big plays. I think what's going to come down to this, whoever goes 3 and out is probably not going to win. You can't go 3 and out in a big game like that. You can't have many of those. If you do, you're going to end up at the bottom of the pile. And it's going to be a very, very tight game. This is not going to be an easy game for the 49ers.
Yeah, we're all excited, Mike. I could hear it in your voice. But there's one more game before this game kicks off, and we've kind of talked about it with Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Can Lamar get to the Super Bowl and beat Patrick? Where are you at, and how do you see that one battling out?
Well, I would say absolutely, and they can, but there's a big but with this. This last game that the Kansas City played was the best they've played in a year since the Super Bowl. They were a completely different team last week on offense. I mean, they have the big three now, Pacheco and Rice, and of course Kelsey, and all three of those guys played at an extremely high level. And a couple of other guys will contribute. It's going to be a really hard game for Baltimore. And I think that, I'm not so concerned about the quarterback at Baltimore. He's terrific. But I know as good as they are defensively, Kansas City right now is playing at a different level than they have all year long.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. We're looking forward to watching the games, and especially the one here at San Francisco. We appreciate you hopping on with us and sharing your insight.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right, that's Mike Martz joining us on the Boxer and Gerson guest line. Evan Giddings in for Matt Steinmetz with Daryl the Guru Johnson.